Okay, so where we just left off was me saying that no, 2 and -1/2 are not the exact same thing. They're actually different numbers. But if we flip this -1/2, we're going to have a 2 over 1, which is just 2. So it is the reciprocal. It is flipped. And opposite, one's positive, one's negative. That's how I got perpendicular right there. So let's continue this pattern. We have a 3 and we have 2/3. Well, even if I was to flip this 3, I'll end up with a 1 over 3. So I have no idea where they're coming up with the 2. There's no relation whatsoever. So we call that an oblique line. So they're going to cross, but it doesn't form that perfect 90-degree angle that we like. Last one right here, number 7. I'm sorry, letter C. Our slopes are 7. So yeah, both of them are exactly the same. What do we know about slopes with the same that are the same? They're parallel lines. Alright, so we're done with the whole recap of parallel perpendicular. Let's look at this equation right here for problem number 10. It says 5x minus 2y is equal to 16. This slope is the blank form of a linear equation. So we have two choices. We have slope-intercept, y equals mx plus b, or we have the one that we've been talking about more recently this week. We called it standard form. Whenever it's x, y number, it's called standard. They want us to solve this equation for y. So let's do that. Box in your y and anything attached to it. Draw your mirror. There you go. Now, how do we get rid of that 5x? We don't want to separate the 5 and the x, so we're not going to divide. We want to keep them together, so we're going to move it by subtracting because it's positive. We want the 5x's to cancel out here. But remember, the rule in algebra, what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. Now the big question is, our box comes down. Can we combine that -5x with a 16? No, we cannot. So we're going to write it out. -5x. And what kind of 16 is that? A positive or a negative? Hopefully you said or thought positive. So there you go. Our y is still not by itself though. It's attached with a number. That number is being -2. Anything that's attached, we need to divide. We need to split up. So divide every single term that you have by -2. So I'm going to rewrite it over here. We have y equals, which is totally what we've been working for. 2 negatives gives you a positive. That's a 5 over 2. Don't forget your x. And a positive and a negative, that's a negative. 2 goes into 16 8 times. So there we go. We finally did it. We have y all by itself. You need to be good at this. You need to practice this. If you're still having trouble, there's some Edmodo video notes that you can always refer to. Just go back and look at solving equations and stuff like that. Alright, number 11 goes with this one, and so does 12. So let's finish this page. The resulting equation, bam, what we just got, is called blank form of a linear equation. Well, what do we call it when you have a slope and an intercept? Well, hopefully you just remembered that I just said it. Called the slope-intercept form. And I'll write out intercept for you this time. Of a linear equation. What is the slope? Now we know the slope is always the number in front of the x. But do we count the x? No. So it's just going to be 5 over 2. And what is the y-intercept? It's the number all by itself. Not 8, but a -8. So we are done with the whole first side, or the whole first page. Let's finish this off and then we are done. So go ahead and flip your paper over. They're giving us a word bank. How nice is that of them? The directions say to write the word that best describes each of these words or phrases. Words may be used more than once. So let's talk about these options that we have. We have slope-intercept form, which we just said on the last page is y equals mx plus b. Parallel lines, they never touch and the slopes are the same. The y-intercept, where it crosses the y-axis and our x is always 0. Our x-intercept, where it crosses the x-axis and our y is always 0. Slope, it's how fast something is going up or down. And perpendicular lines. Perpendicular lines cross each other, forming that pretty 90-degree angle that we like so much. And the slopes are opposite reciprocal, meaning the flip and switch. So let's go through 13 through 23. Rise over run, that's definitely a slope. So if I was you, I'm not you, but if I was, I would totally memorize 13 through 23. Number 14, slopes are the opposite reciprocal. That's the flip and switch. So we're talking about perpendicular lines. I'm not going to cross out the options on top because the directions did tell us we could use some of these words more than once. Rate of change. Rate of change, that's Mr. Slope Guy, how fast something is increasing or decreasing. And that's slope. They form right angles at the intersection. Perpendicular lines. The next one, and I'll move this up for y'all. The y-coordinate will always be 0, so that's opposite, not the y-intercept, but the x-intercept. And I'll spell it out. The opposite now for number 18, the x-coordinate will always be 0. Remember, they're opposites of each other, so y-intercept. Slopes are equal for number 19. We know equal sign is created by two parallel lines. So that is parallel. And then don't forget the word lines. Parallel lines. I'm going to move this up way more now so everybody can see. Number 20, y is equal to mx plus b. That's straight off of that last page. Slope-intercept form, because you need a slope and the y-intercept for that. Change in y over change in x, that is going to be slope. The lines will never intersect, meaning they are never ever going to touch ever. So that will be parallel. And then vertical change over horizontal change. Again, slope. So there we go. We got all those problems done pretty fast. Good job. Hopefully you were able to keep up and get all those answers. If not, this video will be posted on Edmodo later today. That way you can have access to it and watch it at home to prepare yourself for the test. Alright, so now we have to graph 4 different lines. These 4 different lines are all going to be on the same graph, so that's not going to be too much fun. But I think we'll live. So number 24, and I'll scoot up so y'all can see, or scoot the paper up so y'all can see. Sketch the graph of a line that is parallel to this equation, but goes through the point -2, -4. So let's plot this point first, because that's a given. -2, -4. I know the graph is a little fuzzy, guys, and I apologize for that. Do the best you can. Now, what do we know about parallel lines and their slopes? Hopefully, you said they're the same. So our slope is going to be 2, meaning 2 over 1. We go up 2, right 1. So from this dot, up 2, right 1, up 2, right 1, up 2, right 1, up 2, and you're going to pretty much just keep doing this until you run out of space or you can't do it anymore. So I got all these dots right here. Let's have it go the opposite way. Bring it on back. So down 2, left 1, down 2, left 1, and that's pretty much all I can do right there. Connect all those pretty dots, hopefully better than me. Bam. First line, done. Number 25, I'll do that in a different color. Sketch the graph y equals 3. Ooh, there's no x there. So what do we know about y equals a number? Are those horizontal lines or vertical lines? Hopefully. You said they're horizontal lines. So y is equal to 3. We know that dot's right there. It's going to go side to side. Bam, we are done. Problem solved. Next problem. Sketch the graph x is equal to -3. Well, it's completely opposite. Find -3 on the x-axis. Put a dot there. Right there to be exact. And then go up and down because it's a vertical line. Oh, hopefully that was a little bit straighter than mine. Mine had a little curve in it. Number 27. Sketch the graph 3x plus 4y is equal to 12. Now, we had a lesson on this earlier this week. Some of you may have been absent, so let's recap what we did on Monday. We know we can either solve this equation for y in order to graph it, or we can just get 2 points, the x-intercept and the y-intercept, and use those 2 points to graph it. So let's do that. To find our x-intercept, I'm just going to write xi right there. I'm going to cover up the y and anything attached to it. What am I left with? 3x is equal to 12. So write that. Now I want x by itself. Now I'll move this up a little bit more and zoom in just a tad bit. 3x is equal to 12. I want x by itself. So if I divide both sides by 3, I'm going to get x is equal to 4. So on the x-axis, find 4 and put a dot there. Now let's do the same thing but for the y-intercept. For the y-intercept, we know we're going to cover up the x. So what am I stuck with? 4y is equal to 12. Divide by 4 on both sides, and you're going to get 3. So on the y-axis, find the 3. Right there. Connect both of those dots, and just extend your line. Try to keep it as straight as possible. Bam, we are done. As long as on your test, guys, you have those 2 dots pretty pointed exactly where it needs to be, you're good. So let's flip this over. Let's get done with this. Let's finish the last page. So, awesome. 2 more problems, but that second one does have a lot going on. But that's no problem. We can do it. So, number 28. They want to know what are the slope and y-intercepts of the graph or of the line graphed below. Well, we know the y-intercept is wherever the graph crosses the y-axis. In this case, right there. We know it's a negative number. All of our y-intercepts are negative, so can't cross anything out there. But what number exactly? -3. So we can cross out H and F just by knowing our y-intercept is -3. Now the question is, what's our slope? Do we go down 4 and to the right 3, like G is saying? Or do we go down 3 and to the right 4? So let's find the next best point. And put a dot there. I'm going to use that point right there. Maybe you want to use a different point. And just make sure you reduce. Make our little triangle. We did drop, which we knew we were going to because it's a negative slope. We dropped 1, 2, 3 boxes and ran 1, 2, 3, 4. So remember, rise over run, -3 over 4. Which answer choice is that? Hopefully you said J. So for number 28, the answer is J. Alright, you guys ready? 29, the last problem. And we get to graph it and do all kinds of fun stuff with this. So geothermal energy. Whenever water comes into contact with heated underground rocks, geothermal energy is generated. The underground temperature of the rocks depends on their depth below the surface, so how deep it is. The temperature T in degrees Celsius is estimated by the function T of D is equal to 25D plus 10, where D is the depth of the rock in kilometers. So important information right there. First thing they want us to do is sketch that graph. So remember, anytime you're going to graph, you always start with your y-intercept. And we haven't done this for a while, so you may have forgotten. This is our reminder right here, because you may see a problem very similar to this tomorrow. So find 10 on our graph. Well, I notice that it's labeled by 20s, but that's every other square. So I know half of 20 is 10. So this is where I'm starting at. So put a big pretty dot right there. Now, our slope is 25. What is 25 plus 10? Hopefully you said 35. So there's 20, 35 right here. Add another 25 to that. That's 5. That's 15. That's 25. So we're right here. Add another 25. That's 10, 20. And the midway is going to be the 5. And that's 5, 15, 25. So if you're looking for a pattern on how we're doing this, we're starting off with a hole. We're going up 2 boxes and a half. So if I was to follow that, up 2 boxes and a half. But notice how this point right here is in the middle. So I'm going to count this as my half. And that's up 1, 2, and then over 1. So that's just how I'm doing it, so you know. Up 2 boxes and a half. Once you have that, go ahead and connect your dots. Again, hopefully a lot better than what I'm doing right now. And draw an arrow because it could get deeper, or the temperature could be higher than 180. So, did we graph it? Yes, we did. It wasn't a multiple choice question. We didn't just circle a letter. We read the problem. Part B says, what is the temperature of the rocks at a depth of 5 kilometers? So, let's look at our x-axis, because it says the depth. Find the 5. Find 5. Go up. Go across. Right there. That's 20, 30, so it's in between the 30 and the 140, 130, 140. I would say that's 135. But 135 what? 135 dogs? Is that what we're talking about? You need to be a little bit more specific in all of your classes from here on out. So look at what your y-axis is labeled. 135 degrees Celsius. Okay. Last two parts right here. Let's do this. What does the y-intercept mean in the context of this problem? Well, we know the y-intercept is 10. That's a given. We see that. We were told that in our equation. But how far down did we go? Did we go down at all? And they're giving us a keyword right here, y-intercept. Whenever we're talking about y-intercept, we always know that's the initial, your starting amount or value. So what does the y-intercept mean in the context? It means that the temperature of, whenever water comes into contact with the heat, the temperature at a depth of, well, how far down did we go? We didn't go far at all. We stayed there. The temperature at a depth of 0 kilometers. What is the slope of this function? Well, the slope is always the number in front of the variable in our equation. In this case, 25. And what does it represent? So we went up 25, so a temperature raise of 25 degrees Celsius for what? So the temperature, and I'm just going to put temp, raised, because it's a positive slope, it's getting bigger, 25 degrees Celsius every what? What are we talking about in our y, or in our x? Every kilometer. Alright guys, so that concludes our review. Make sure you study this. If you know you're not the most responsible person ever and you really just want to turn it in today, that is fine. If not, you need to turn it in tomorrow. Again, make sure you have all of your papers that you are missing, if you're missing anything. If not, gold star on your forehead. If you are missing things, shame on you. You have until tomorrow to get all of that finished and turned in. Have a good day, guys.